For the past 4 years, I've been doing a series called 31 Days of Horror, where I challenge myself to watch a horror movie every day of October. And this year, I'm going for round 5. That means daily reviews of scary movies that I've never seen before, breaking down what's worth your time and what isn't. But before we get into 2025, I want to take a look back at last year. In 2024, I started a new tradition for the challenge by making a full recap video ranking every movie I watched the previous October in 2023. I honestly really loved the full retrospective look at everything, so this year I'm happy to be doing it again, reminiscing on what I loved and didn't love, but only for some of the 31 movies. In 2024, I set myself a side challenge of watching the entire Alien franchise, all 7 core films. I've got a separate video ranking just those that I'll be posting soon, so keep an eye out for that. You can subscribe and click that bell and be notified anytime I post a new video. But without those 7 Alien movies, this video will only cover the other 24, or as I like to call it, the 24 of 2024. So you see what I did there? That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. Quick disclaimer, this ranking is based on my opinions a full year after the fact. Some of these movies left a lasting impact, and some of them I completely forgot I watched. Overall, though, 2024 gave me a really strong batch of horror, so if I've ranked something really low that you love, just know there's plenty of horror movies I dislike far more than the ones on this list. These aren't the best and worst of all time, just of what I saw in 2024. So with that said, let's kick things off with the worst of last year's bunch, the bottom 5. Number 24, Sinister. This might be the most overhyped horror movie I've ever seen. I was super excited to watch this because it's been scientifically proven as the scariest horror movie of all time. There's this thing called the Science of Scare Project, a group that has viewers watch an array of horror movies while hooked up to heart rate monitors, and whatever movie elevates the viewer's heart rate the most is declared the scariest movie of all time. And year after year, it keeps on being Sinister. So I went into this expecting so much, and I got so little. Sinister stars Ethan Hawke as a true crime writer who moves his family into a murder house and discovers a box of haunted home videos in the attic. It's an intriguing premise for sure, but poorly executed and underwhelmingly not scary. My problem with Sinister's horror is that it comes from cheap jump scares that lack the proper build-up to make them effective. In last year's recap, I praised James Wan's first Insidious film for its very well-crafted jump scares that effectively deliver good setup and payoff. Every jump scare felt like the perfect exclamation point at the end of an already tense sentence. Here, the jump scares come out of nowhere, and I don't respect a lazy loud noise or startling image thrown in at random to catch a viewer off guard. Can I see why it would spike people's heart rates in a test group? Absolutely. But this has no real tension or lasting horror, only a handful of cheap, shocking moments. But I don't care solely about the scares or lack thereof. The actual quality of the filmmaking is my biggest concern, and Sinister doesn't have much going for it. The makeup and effects are abysmally basic and look like costumes bought from Spirit Halloween. Ethan Hawke, while normally a fantastic actor, really throws in the towel here. The story is cliché and predictable, and constantly frustrated me with the character's obviously bad decisions. But by far the weirdest thing is the score, which is inexplicably full of bongos. Maybe I'm too dumb to get it. Maybe my mind can't comprehend the unimaginable horrors of Cuban percussion. But anytime this score kicked in, it was far more funny than frightening. So while I can see why Sinister gets such a large heart rate spike out of viewers, that doesn't make it a great horror movie. It just proves that science can only measure objective things, but art and film are subjective. You might love Sinister. If you do, tell me why in the comments. The ability to have an opinion is what makes movies special, and science will never be able to account for that. Number 23, Trap. This is unfortunately the first of a couple movies on this list that I would not classify as a horror after watching. On IMDb, Letterboxd, Google, it shows Trap as a horror, but I really don't think it should count as such. It's a crime thriller, or honestly, it's so laughably bad that it should count as a comedy. Trap is an M. Night Shyamalan film about a father that takes his daughter to a pop concert, only to find out it's a trap to catch a notorious serial killer. But the thing is, the dad is the serial killer. And that's not a twist that gets revealed towards the end of the movie. No, that cat and mouse chase with Josh Hartnett as a serial killer dad is the entire premise of the film. With M. Night Shyamalan, I've come to expect big third-act plot twists, and Trap does not deliver in that regard. It might be the most painfully straightforward and predictable movie I watched all of last October, and that's extra disappointing coming from M. Night Shyamalan. Every line of dialogue felt stilted and awkward, with an overemphasis on information and a complete lack of emotion. Its story is frustratingly full of plot holes and lucky coincidences. I don't know how somebody could be this infamous of a serial killer and be this bumbling and clumsy. One of the only things I praised about this movie in my initial review of it last year was how sweet it was for M. Night Shyamalan to include his daughter as the big pop star. But in retrospect, I realize that's just nepotism, and a bad case of it, because Salika Knight just does not have the acting or singing capabilities to successfully pull off the role of a Taylor Swift or Sabrina Carpenter level pop star. The only reason I rank this higher than Sinister is because it's one of those it's so bad it's good kind of movies. So if you have any interest in watching this, just make sure you go into it clearly expecting a campy comedy crime thriller, not a horror. Number 22, Vivarium, which is the This Could Have Been an Email of horror movies. Vivarium is an indie psychological thriller starring Imogen Poots and Jesse Eisenberg as a young couple who get stuck in a bizarre liminal space neighborhood. It has an extremely simple plot, with very base level and obvious metaphors about how suburban life and parenthood are a bleak capitalist nightmare. However, Vivarium stretches this bare bones plot out for 97 minutes, and it is painfully boring to sit through. This would have made for a fabulous 15-minute short film, but as a movie over 6 times as long, it is a waste of time to sit down and watch the whole thing. Every once in a while I get clips of Vivarium on my TikTok feed with the AI voiceover guy giving a plot summary, and honestly, if you'd like to watch the movie, that'd be my preferred way to do it. Any option that condenses this extremely basic plot down to a runtime that fits its simplicity is fine by me. Number 21, Demon Seed. This is one of the movies I forgot I watched, and if you've never heard of it, I wouldn't be surprised. It's a super random 70s sci-fi about an artificial intelligence who wants to impregnate his creator's wife to take on a human form. I watched this with the hopes of unearthing a niche hidden gem, but there are no gem-like qualities here, only an understandably forgotten flick. From what I remember, Demon Seed was either on or below average in pretty much every regard. Some standouts were the above-average sound design and set design. I always love the aesthetic of 70s horror, but aesthetic alone isn't enough. The film feels uncomfortably sleazy and sexually aggressive, and it moves at a snail's pace. The special effects are far below average, and as much as I'd like to cut it some slack, it did come out the same year as Star Wars, so we were clearly at a point in cinema history where better visual effects were possible. But I think the main reason Demon Seed has faded into obscurity is because its critiques on AI are undeniably outdated. The futuristic technologies it tries to scare us with are now commonplace household items. Some might find its relatively accurate prediction of the future eerie, but I never found myself acting like, a doorbell with a camera! Oh no! A smart home device that can turn on the lights! Oh, the humanity! Or lack thereof, because it's a robot. So, in a day and age where AI issues have become far more nuanced than worrying over Alexa and Siri, Demon Seed no longer has anything relevant to say. Number 20, Late Night with the Devil. Unlike Demon Seed, this funnily enough does have relevant things to say about AI, but not in a good way. This 2024 indie found footage film went under a lot of scrutiny for using AI imagery on a handful of interstitials. It's always so frustrating to see people using AI to create blatantly ugly images instead of hiring a real human artist to do a far better job. But it's even more frustrating for Late Night with the Devil because the movie was produced by 9 different production companies. 9! That is an absurd amount of production companies. You know it's bad when Late Night with the Devil has more production companies in the opening credits than there are in the Family Guy bit making fun of excessive production company logos.
Oh, this guy's in trouble. Can't wait to hear his story. Oh, come on!
Anyway, my true frustration is that with these 9 companies backing this film, it is highly improbable that they couldn't pull together the funds to hire an artist to create the interstitials. This decision was based on sheer laziness and a sad disinterest from artists to support another. Beyond my frustrations with the AI, I think this movie's other greatest sin is how it fumbles its ending. The first 2/3 of this film are a relatively engaging slow burn through a demonic lost episode of a late night show from the 70s. It's fascinating to watch the mystery slowly unfold in a very reserved and thoughtful manner. It also makes sense to be a found footage film, since it's logical that a television show would be recorded and that there would be literal footage to find. But for the grand finale, they throw that tone and common sense right out the window. It is a loud mess of CGI demon possession that feels wildly out of place. But that's not all, folks. We also get a dream sequence. How in the hell are we supposed to find footage of a dream? Every bit of thoughtful, realistic suspense that had been built up is completely erased by a stupidly over-the-top ending. I think with both a more ambiguous ending and art made by humans, not AI, this would have had potential to be in the top 10 of the 2024 lineup. But as it stands, it's definitely worth being in the bottom 5. Now that we've covered the bottom of the barrel, it's time for everything in the middle. The following 14 films range from meh to alright to really good. but I don't have much more to say for them that I haven't already said in their corresponding reviews. So we're going to quick speed run through the middle up to the top 5. If you're curious to hear my extended thoughts on any of the following movies, you can check out my YouTube shorts and see the post for that film. Or if you still want to know more, comment your questions and opinions below. I'd love to hear what you think. Number 19, Cujo, a Stephen King adaptation with a messy plot full of exposition and utterly lacking in resolution. Number 18, Eyes Without a Face. This 1960s French film is mostly filler and fluff, but has some really strong thematic moments scattered throughout. Like Vivarium, a shorter, focused cut of this would be phenomenal. Number 17, Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. Tim Burton doesn't know how to direct a musical. I love Tim Burton, I'd love to see a stage production of this musical, but I do not love them put together. Number 16, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. And number 15, It's What's Inside. These are basically the exact same movie, both following toxic Gen Z friend groups meeting in a mansion for a game that takes a deadly turn. I give the slight edge to It's What's Inside for its creative cinematography, lighting, and editing. Number 14, Drag Me to Hell. This Sam Raimi comedy horror is perfectly campy, but struggles with outdated visual effects and a sloppy third act. Number 13, Ready or Not. I got a lot of heat from my high school principal for not loving this one. I still liked it, but I think this comedy horror needs to be watched in a group setting for the full effect. Number 12, The Babadook. Horror movies exploring depression, grief, and trauma have become very overdone at this point, but this one does it pretty darn well. Number 11, Interview with a Vampire, which is extremely gay. All the gay subtext you could ask for. It is gay all the way. Number 10, Creepshow, a comedy cult classic that tells 5 distinct stories inspired by 50s horror comics. The 5 segments are pretty hit or miss, but I loved its aesthetic and campiness. Number 9, Wreck. Late Night with the Devil, take notes. This is how found footage is done. Wreck is truly terrifying, with well-executed long takes and very effective jump scares. Number 8, Bram Stoker's Dracula. This is easily my favorite adaptation of the Dracula story, thanks to its lavish set design, beautiful costuming, stunning practical effects, and expertly done match cut and crossfade transitions. I just wish Keanu Reeves could do a better British accent.
I know where the bastard sleeps.
Number 7, Talk to Me. There is never a dull moment in this movie. It is constantly engaging, with its exciting cinematography, tight edit, and well-crafted scares. Number 6, I Saw the TV Glow. This A24 fantasy drama was great, but after watching it, I wouldn't classify it as a horror. I think it's a beautiful piece of queer indie filmmaking that I definitely recommend, and it has some horror-inspired elements, but it's not really a horror movie. And with that, we've made it through the middle to the top 5. Number 5, The Stepford Wives. This feminist mystery thriller successfully met the high expectations I had for it. I was really looking forward to watching it because it's based on a novel by Ira Levin, the same author that wrote Rosemary's Baby. I absolutely adore the film adaptation of Rosemary's Baby, despite the fact it's directed by infamous rapist Roman Polanski. So the appeal of another female-led horror movie in the same vein that isn't directed by a rapist sounded great. And it was great. It makes me want to read the original novel, not for the sake of performatively showing off my feminist horror with a matcha latte and a tote bag to go along with it, but for the sake of genuinely loving the stories Ira Levin has created. The Stepford Wives follows Joanna Eberhardt as she and her husband move to the seemingly perfect suburb of Stepford. But as Joanna starts noticing the women around her becoming eerily submissive, she begins to suspect something sinister. Again, I obviously expected this to be female-led and feminist, but it's shocking just how biting its critiques of the homemaker lifestyle are, especially for the 70s. This 50-year-old movie feels leagues more progressive than most feminism in modern mainstream film. The Stepford Wives style of horror is a psychological slow burn, which I understand many people might consider boring, but I was engaged the whole way through. Catherine Ross gives a fantastic lead performance as Joanna, and Paula Prentiss is possibly even better in her supporting role as Bobby. The set design is perfectly mid-century, presenting that too-good-to-be-true white picket fence life. The cinematography echoes this with a dreamy, soft focus that creates an uneasy contrast between how idyllic everything looks and how sinister it actually feels. However, my one big frustration with The Stepford Wives is that it's pretty predictable. But I don't think that's the fault of the film itself, rather the legacy that it's left behind. The phrase Stepford wife has taken on a life of its own, and its story has influenced countless other horror movies since, like Get Out and Don't Worry Darling. Being pop culturally aware unfortunately means you likely know where this movie is headed before it even begins. And yet, despite that predictability, the film's execution is so sharp that I was thoroughly engaged nonetheless. Number 4, Annihilation. This was one that had been sitting on my watch list for ages, and I didn't realize that the soundtrack was from this. I had just heard it on TikTok. So when it started playing in the movie, my first thought wasn't, oh, that song's from this movie. It was, why are they sampling that sound from TikTok? So, take these reviews with a grain of salt. Annihilation is a 2018 sci-fi horror starring Natalie Portman as a biology professor who joins an expedition into a strange quarantine area called the Shimmer. The cinematography and visual effects team pulled off something truly incredible here, creating a world that's both impossibly beautiful and deeply unsettling. Annihilation works so well because the Shimmer feels otherworldly in a way no other sci-fi film setting ever has. If this were just a generic sci-fi landscape, the film wouldn't be nearly as compelling. But Alex Garland's vision of this vibrant, dreamlike collision between heaven and hell makes Annihilation worth watching on its own. Everything else surrounding the visuals is a bit more controversial. Of course, I personally loved it, it's top 5 for a reason, but I can get why this wouldn't be everyone's cup of tea. For example, Annihilation doesn't have a neat, wrapped-up conclusion. It's very intentionally left ambiguous. But with that uncertainty comes room to interpret the story in your own way. Some people think it's about self-destruction, about how we drink, smoke, and cheat in attempts to feel better, but really just dig ourselves a deeper hole. Some people think it's about cancer and its unstoppable replication. Some people think it's about identity and personal growth, tearing yourself apart to come out changed for the better. I think it can be all of those things. Or none of those things, and I love that Annihilation leaves the viewer to sit with that. Now, if I had to nitpick, which I do have to, it's literally the point of videos like this, I'd say it's hard to connect with the supporting cast. Gina Rodriguez, Tessa Thompson, Oscar Isaac, they're all great actors, but I couldn't tell you their character names if my life depended on it. Could that be because it's been a year since I've seen this? Probably. Could it also be that this is just a common critique I see a lot of people sharing about Annihilation? Yeah, more likely. Again, it's a great movie, but it's far more focused on its themes and visuals than on the interpersonal connections between the crew. Add a crew member, lose a crew member, and I think this would still turn out about the same. But rather than seeing that as a drawback, the fact that the supporting cast feels relatively incidental, and yet the film still works so well, is a testament to Garland's filmmaking. The focus on themes, visuals, and atmosphere carries the story, proving that even without fully developed side characters, Annihilation remains completely captivating. Number 3, The Substance. This movie is disgusting. Perfectly disgusting. I caught it right at the end of its theatrical run, on October 1st as I began the challenge, and I knew then it was going to be a top 3 contender for sure. The Substance follows Elizabeth Sparkle, a celebrity past her prime that takes an experimental drug called the Substance, which allows her to split into a younger, more perfect version of herself. She has to share her life with this other self and follow the rules of switching back every week. But are they going to do that? No. And does complete and utter chaos ensue? Yeah. On a technical level, this movie is unreal. The gruesome practical effects are top tier. The sound design is stomach churning. The set design and costuming are perfection, all with Kubrick-inspired cinematography as the cherry on top. The scares swing between gory, bloody body horror and Dennis Quaid eating shrimp, which, trust me, is just as revolting as the gore, if not more so. Thematically, the movie is very direct. It's saying beauty standards are harmful. Hypersexualization is harmful. And yet, director Coralie Farragut hypersexualizes the hell out of Margaret Qualley in almost every scene she's in. It feels extremely ironic, and makes me harken back to what I said earlier about the Stepford Wives and how modern feminist filmmaking doesn't feel as effective. Condemning the male gaze by giving into it isn't progressive, it's regressive. Do I understand why Coralie Farragut took this direction? Yes. For what The Substance is, I don't realistically see another way it could have happened. But as a result, its message feels a bit preachy and fake rather than earned and sincere. Grievances on execution of theme aside, I had a blast. I love body horror, and The Substance delivers exactly what I want from the genre. It's bold, it's gruesome, and it's gonna be a horror classic for years to come. Number 2, The Others. This is the gold standard for haunted house movies. It's the gold standard for mystery horror. It's the gold standard for plot twists. It's a gold standard for gold standards. Truly, this movie is so well thought out and expertly made. Alejandro Amenabar not only directed the film, but also wrote the screenplay and composed the score. It's his vision brought to life as personally and meticulously as possible. The Others stars Nicole Kidman as a mother raising her 2 children with a rare allergy to sunlight, all cooped up in their dark old family estate. That premise allows for such beautiful cinematography and lighting, with these great lantern-lit shots that have this eerie atmospheric glow. On top of that, the acting is phenomenal. Nicole Kidman delivers my favorite performance I've seen of hers, and the two child actors match her beat for beat. It's rare to see performances across the board so consistently strong, but everyone in this is operating at the absolute highest level. The horror is equally well crafted, with a good balance of all types of scares. The tension is always palpable, thanks in no small part to the sound design enhancing every creak, whisper, and thud. Most of the fear comes from that tension alone, but there's also a good handful of jump scares. Whenever a jump scare does happen, it feels highly earned, with clear setup and payoff. But what cements The Others as truly unforgettable is its twist ending. It is one of, if not the greatest, plot twists I've ever seen. There's an initial twist that's somewhat predictable, but then a second twist comes in and recontextualizes everything. I'm obviously not going to go into more detail and spoil the twist, but just know that The Others shows that a perfect ending can elevate an already great film even higher. The way The Others approaches every aspect with such clear care and intention makes it essential viewing, whether you're a horror fan or not. And finally, my number one pick for 31 Days of Horror is not actually a horror. Like I mentioned earlier, there were a few films I wouldn't personally classify as a horror after watching, and this is one of them. The internet says it's horror, but I say it's a comedy. It's a dark comedy, a horror-inspired comedy, but it's not a horror. So technically, the best horror movie I watched last year was The Others, and I'm happy to honorably crown it with that title. But the single best film I watched, horror or not, was Death Becomes Her. Starring a trio of icons, Meryl Streep, Goldie Hawn, and Bruce Willis, and directed by one of the all-time greats, Robert Zemeckis, Death Becomes Her was everything I could have asked for. The story follows vain actress Madeline Ashton, her frenemy Helen Sharp, and Helen's husband Ernest Menville, a once-renowned plastic surgeon caught in their increasingly absurd rivalry. The horror elements of this come into play when Madeline discovers a potion promising eternal youth and beauty. Immortality, however, comes with a catch. Bodies might not die, but they can still be mangled, twisted, blown apart, and deformed. That might sound scary, but at no point does this turn into a gruesome body horror. Instead, the concept fuels an outrageous slapstick duel between Madeline and Helen, each trying to outwit and outlast the other. Again, it's not horror, it's comedy, and it executes the genre to perfection. The comedy isn't that mild, smirk to yourself or snort through your nose kind of funny, it is genuinely laugh out loud. Death Becomes Her is packed with razor-sharp camp, endlessly quotable one-liners, and violent slapstick that plays like live-action Looney Tunes. Every gag feels meticulously staged and flawlessly delivered. The film won the Oscar for Best Visual Effects, and it's easy to see why. ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, was at the helm of this project in their golden era, right between Terminator 2 and Jurassic Park. The movie pioneered CGI tools like skin shaders and surface simulations, ones that would soon bring Steven Spielberg's iconic T-Rex to life. What makes it work so well is how seamlessly those innovations were blended with animatronics, puppetry, and practical stunt work. From a head twisted completely backwards to gaping holes blasted through torsos, the grotesque slapstick still looks incredible today. But this film's excellency goes beyond visual effects. I loved the gothic lavish set design and the costumes that lean into old Hollywood excess. The pacing never drags, the chaos once started never stops. Streep and Hawn deliver some of their sharpest comedic performances, but the real surprise is Bruce Willis. Action hero John McClane transforms into this bumbling straight man, selling every pathetic pratfall and meltdown with hilarious sincerity. Just as The Others nailed the haunted house genre, Death Becomes Her nails the dark comedy. So while not a horror, by my taste, it's as close to perfect as a movie gets. And that's what I watched last October. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well as your recommendations for what I should check out this October. If you enjoyed this video, then please like and subscribe, as well as follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Letterboxd so you can keep up with the 2025 lineup. If you're curious about my previous year's lineups, you can check out my YouTube Shorts or TikTok page for the individual reviews, or my Letterboxd for ranked lists of each year's films. It's been so much fun doing this every year, and I can't believe we've already made it to year 5. I'll see you tomorrow for day 1 of the 2025 31 Days of Horror.